Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are talking about microfiber. Recently, I kind of had a few comments suggesting that I try out microfiber with some setups once again, and even some viewers saying that I should definitely try microfiber because it's the best. And I thought to myself, you know what? I should. Leaving all jokes aside, when I thought of using microfiber with orchids as medium, it was because I wanted to find a substitute for SYNTHICheng. Do we remember SYNTHICheng? That product was not a sphagnum moss alternative. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's an old story, but check it down below in the description. I'm not even sure if they make SYNTHICheng anymore because I don't think it caught on. But anyway, SYNTHICheng was a fiber which was advertised as sphagnum moss replacement, and we used it. It turns out that after a little bit of use, it becomes slightly water repellent, or hygrophobic if you will, a word which popped in my comment section the other day. We shall address that in a Q&A probably. Anyway, long story short, if SYNTHICheng would dry out, it would start not to absorb water. And to make it absorb water once again, you would need to properly soak it, and then it became very absorbent, hence why I use it as a wick with some of my pots. But in my setups, I needed something that would be absorbent pretty much all the time. And that's how I came up with microfiber. This is the improved version of SYNTHICheng, which I'm not entirely sure what type of fiber it was. I was suspecting it was microfiber, hence why I thought about this, but it wasn't. Now, microfiber indeed acted as some sort of sphagnum moss. When it went dry, it did not become hygrophobic or water repellent. It would still absorb water with the same power, and pretty much it performed all the time the same way. It's also very water retentive, another thing that I liked about it. And I used it in my Vandas setups, again, links down below. I'm not entirely sure if I made a final thoughts on the product or my experience with it, but at some point I gave it up because I ran into something I was not expecting, and I thought it was something that had to do only with microfiber and other media would not have it. I was wrong. I'm of course referring about algae, which is something I am actually dealing with quite a lot. You know that I use top layers, and even if algae don't really affect orchids, they tend to form excessively in my area. There are a lot of spores in the air. Even if I don't fertilize an orchid, you could still see a little bit of algae forming. You can imagine if I fertilize what happens. And I think you've seen in my videos my issues with algae. They're excessive, they damage root tips, I don't want them. And with microfiber, my main issue was algae. So today I'm gonna go through the pros and cons of the microfiber just for those of you who asked me about it. And in the second part of the video, we are actually going to reuse microfiber, but now that I know what I know, we're gonna use it differently. So my main use of microfiber was with my Vanda orchids. I wanted something that would retain more water around their root system because I live in such a hot environment, but also still be very airy. And at the time, I don't know if anybody actually used microfiber successfully. Definitely on YouTube, I didn't see anybody. But afterwards, I did see people using microfiber in their setups with leca and other things, which, by the way, do you want me to try out a setup like that? I'm not sure if it's gonna work well, but if you guys want me to try it out, I will try it. Let me know down below in the comment section. So I used only the microfiber around the Vanda roots, and pretty much that was it. You'll have some images on the screen. I cannot play the full video because there's a difference in quality and it will look horrible, but you can see there that I used transparent pots as baskets. I didn't have baskets, but there was nothing inside them. They had ventilation holes. I used them just like that, just as baskets and with some microfiber strains. And that was terrific for my Vandas. They really grew very, very well, and the roots responded very well to the extra moisture. I was able to water my Vandas every 2 days or so if it wasn't very hot, and life was peachy. So to give you a few pros of the microfiber, it retains a lot of water compared to how much space it actually takes. In this regard, it is the closest I've ever come to sphagnum moss, to be fully honest with you, as an inorganic solution. It's also very airy due to its shape. Of course, that you might find some microfiber products which don't have this shape, but I used it as strings just to give a lot of ventilation to the root system. So as long as I didn't compact or made a very tight ball of microfiber, things were very, very airy. Also, it did not smell. At the time, many people were saying, oh my God, it's gonna smell so bad because, you know, kitchen rags. Well, the thing that makes kitchen rags smell bad are the actual organics trapped in the kitchen rags. Even the fact that you are wiping your hands on the cloth makes it smell bad because you leave a layer of dead cells there, which will start to, break down. I'm not gonna go into the details. So it did not smell bad, actually. The microfiber itself, it was odorless. It did not change the parameters of the water, the pH, or anything of the sorts, nothing that I ever measured. It was very absorbent and it did not become hydrophobic in time, meaning that no matter how much it dried, if you would put a droplet of water on it, it would absorb it super fast. Absorption was actually very fast, so I didn't need to soak the orchids for too long. Sometimes I would just shower a little bit the root system and it would have been enough for the microfiber to get soaked. It directs the moisture very evenly throughout its mass, very, very similar qualities to sphagnum moss. And overall, it was just the best thing I ever thought of. Why did I give it up? Well, because I had some issues with algae, it had some cons. One thing that is very unlike sphagnum moss is the fact that microfiber tends to get very attached to the root system, no matter if the roots are hairy or not. If they're hairy, you're in trouble. But even the very smooth root system of the Vanda orchid would get very, very attached to the microfiber, which, non-issue if you don't need to remove the microfiber, right? Yeah, well, I had to remove it because it became infested with algae, and within 6 months or so, it was very, very fast. And that made it look very bad. It started to affect the root system. It smelled bad as well. I think I had some cyanobacteria there as well. It was a mess. So I thought, well, alrighty, I'm gonna get it out, try to wash it, put it back, everything should be okay. Well, not really, because together with the microfiber, parts of the velamen would come off as well. Root tips, I'm not even gonna mention. They were all very, very damaged. And that seriously, seriously put me off. This is the reason why I'm not a huge fan of bark as well. If I have to use it, I will use it, and I'll see how I will deal with it later. But in all of my setups, including the liner, which I have some issues with, I try to make sure that if I want to remove that thing, I will remove it safely. The liner I can remove super easy because I glued it with hot glue. This, on the other hand, was really not easy to remove, and that really put me off, together with the appearance of the algae, which was just extreme. A little algae wouldn't have bothered me, particularly because this is green, but it was a lot of algae there. So the thing was, I had a massive infestation of algae with all of my Vandas, and it would only get worse. I thought about solutions, how to remove, how to wash it out. I was thinking hydrogen peroxide, but I had too many Vandas, and in my area hydrogen peroxide is very scarce. So I thought, you know what, I will actually give up the microfiber because this is just not working out. And if you remember afterwards, I went with that coconut fiber thing, which is not this, but this is the current thing that I thought of. We'll talk about it. But yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I gave up the microfiber. Not because it wasn't working great, it was actually fabulous. And when it dried out, it didn't start to remove moisture from the roots. It was fantastic, and the Vandas loved it. The problem was the algae, which was getting out of hand. However, though, as it turns out, the problem is not only with microfiber, it's with everything that I use that retains a lot of water. Reason why now I actually use top layers, and why I told you in yesterday's video that some people absolutely do not need to use top layers. In other areas, algae don't have so much success to appear, but in my area, take a look at this. This is the Comparetia that I just ordered like 3 weeks ago or something. Maximum a month ago from Orchid Garden. I did not even fertilize this orchid because she's recovering. I'm hoping to save it, and look at that. I already have a little bit of algae there. Just because there is a little bit of calcium there or something, a little nitrogen maybe from the sphagnum moss that algae feed on. Can you imagine if I start to fertilize as well, and particularly with Vandas, which are heavier feeders? It's just going to become a mess. And you might think, well, hold up, if you have algae, you have an imbalance of something. No, actually that only applies to aquariums. With orchids, it's actually very, very hard to determine how much they actually consume within a given time because we don't have a confined environment. I cannot take a sample of the air or of the medium necessarily and see, Do I have excessive phosphates or things of the sorts? No, it's not how it works. Thus why we need to actually flush orchids from time to time. Orchids don't feed all at the same rate and certainly not the same throughout the year. So it's very hard to specifically determine the quantity of feed that you need to give. We can only estimate. There will always be something left over. Plus, algae have much faster growth and they consume fertilizer much faster, so they will always outcompete the orchid. So no matter how I turn it, I cannot really get rid of the algae. The only way I can control them is through shade, not letting them have light. And this is what I'm doing with the top layers. And it works really great. It's the only way that I can actually use sphagnum moss the way I want to use it. But today, as I was saying, we are going to start using microfiber once again because I ran into a little bit of a pickle with the Vandas setup. But knowing what I know now, I am going to use it in a different way. So I'll link you down below to my Vandas setup where I use the liners, just so you're up to date with what a liner is. If you missed that video, check it down below. The thing is, after about 6 months of use with success, that liner became a little brittle and the baskets started to leak a little bit. Well, that's not a biggie. Baskets are supposed to leak. Well, I was actually counting on the fact that the liner will retain a little bit of water there, at least until I get over winter, because in the grow space I cannot really splash water around. And well, I didn't actually notice that with some baskets the liner started to leak and not retain that layer of water, hence I got some orchids a little bit dehydrated, but it's okay, they're pulling through now. So I thought, well, okay, I have some alternatives here. Either I remove the Vandas, put a different type of liner, one that is UV resistant or at least something that will not degrade so fast, which I really considered, but the Vandas are already attached to the basket, so I cannot move them from the basket. Or return to an old friend, the microfiber, but try to shade it somehow. And I think that is the option that I'm gonna go with now. So I will actually basket one of my Vandas, which does not have a home just yet. It's a newer Vanda. And I'll show you the thought process behind this. Some liners are still okay and I can get away with them until spring comes. But yeah, they will definitely not be there for a few years. Alright, so today we're gonna basket the Wrinkle Stylist Retusa or Retusha. I don't know why I have a tendency to call it Retusha. This is a newer acquisition. Isn't she lovely? She's a baby Vanda at this point, but it's okay. It's very hard to find a mature Retusa or Retusha, so this one will have to do. And I was actually waiting on some more baskets from Repot Me. I kept her in this little basket, which I showed you a long time ago, but now it is time that she is properly displayed. The root system was not particularly great on this orchid, but she's starting some new root tips. She's gonna be just fine. And I think this basket will do just great for it. So the first thing I want to do is to actually make sure she's stable in the basket. I will be using some raffia tape. The raffia will deteriorate in time, but it's okay. Until it does, I'm hoping the orchid will grab onto the basket. And now it's time to add a few microfiber strips around the root system. And now if I would leave this like this, it will be attacked by algae and pretty much I would have to redo the setup. But if I shade the microfiber somehow, I should be a lot safer. Now, I thought about using cocoa fiber once again. I used it last year with the previous baskets and it was absolutely fine. The problem with that was that it had a weird funky smell. The coconut fiber that I used came from those poles that I used to grow the vanilla on because I cannot find separate cocoa fiber, but it had this very dusty, very not nice smell that made me cough for whatever reason. So I thought, okay, no more cocoa fiber, but I did find at my local flower shop a very similar material. It might actually be processed cocoa fiber, which has been dyed a different color. I don't know what it is. It's very similar to cocoa fiber actually. It does not smell, which is good. I did find some strains which are a different color, so that's why I'm saying I do believe it's cocoa fiber, but it's for decoration purposes. This is the lightest color that I found, or the more natural. There were some green fibers as well. They weren't very natural, but kind of running out of this one. but I will go and check an unopened bag to see what material it is. It might be organic, it might be inorganic. The thing is, it's too thin to actually attach to the root system. It's very close to cocoa fiber, but it's not, and it doesn't smell bad, so that's why I use it. And it will do the trick in shading the microfiber strands that I used here. Okay, so pretty much this is it. I'm just going to attach a hook to this basket, and that is it. Now the microfiber is very, very slightly visible. It is shaded quite a lot by this fiber, and I will just have to keep an eye on it, see if there are any algae actually developing. This is very unruly, but it's okay. And if there are, obviously put some more shading material, shading fibers, cocoa fibers, whatever these are. I'm hoping that with this setup, I won't actually have issues with the microfiber, because other than that, it was actually pretty great. But the algae situation, oh no. So at least for the new orchids that I have, which are not basketed, I will go ahead and do this. I'm gonna hang on to the liners as much as I can, getting through the winter with my Vandas. And then outside, the story will be totally different because I can splash water around on my terrace. I cannot do so in my grow space. But there we have it. This is how I will be using microfiber with some Vandas, and we'll see if it works. I did see a lot of people using cocoa fiber without microfiber necessarily, but cocoa fiber with something like this, you can absolutely totally use it if you have good quality cocoa fiber, which does not smell so bad. If you find that your baskets don't really retain so much water, definitely you can try out microfiber. If you don't have so much algae issues, it will work a lot better than for me. If you do have algae issues and you want to test out microfiber with an orchid just to experiment, make sure you shade it. It's just so hard to remove microfiber from the root system, and being that it's wet and it retains water, it will be very prone to algae formation if your environment is so inclined. Alrighty guys, so that's about it on the whole microfiber situation. As I was saying, I only used it with the Vandas, but I am tempted to try it out in the Leca setup. If you guys want me to, then I probably will. I'm a little scared about how it attaches to roots, to be fully honest, and I always think about things in advance. What am I gonna do in 2 years? So probably I'll try it out with the mini Phalaenopsis or something that I know I can save easily. That's the only downside with the microfiber really in a pot setup. Let's say with the Vandas, you know, it's a basket. It's not so imperative to unbasket Vandas unless the basket breaks down, which doesn't really happen all that often. And Vandas outgrowing their baskets, again, kind of impossible because baskets are so open. So it kind of works there, but in a much smaller setup, I'm not all that sure about it. I'm not very eager to try it, if you know what I mean. But there we have it. It's funny how some ideas just go full circle and come back to me. It means that for some people, it actually really, really works. So I'm happy. I'm happy if I could solve some people's issues, even though I couldn't solve mine. But there we have it. I'll keep you up to date. Thank you guys so much for watching. You know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And if you like YouTube to notify you whenever I upload a new video, just turn on notifications for my channel. Also, if you're curious about my other setups, just visit the description. I try to list everything that I use there. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!